If you're over 60, this is the most important episode you hear this week. Now picture this. If you've ever watched the clock crawl past midnight, knowing you should be asleep but feeling like your body forgot how, this is for you. Many people over 60 tell the same story. I'm tired, but my body won't listen. They've tried pills, teas, and fancy pillows, but still wake up stiff, restless, and frustrated. A few years ago, one quiet medical discovery began spreading across senior communities worldwide. It didn't involve medicine, supplements, or expensive gadgets. It began with movement, slow, gentle stretches before bed. And they worked. Over 1 million older adults reported deeper sleep, less morning pain, and more energy within just 14 days. The approach came from a doctor who lived past 100, not by chasing youth, but by listening to the body's language of calm. He believed sleep wasn't lost with age. It was buried beneath layers of tension we forget to release. Tonight, we explore those very movements and the wisdom behind them that continue to help people reclaim peaceful rest. One breath at a time, welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast. Today we're joined by the remarkable Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, a man whose life's work continues to change how millions sleep. Doctor, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, John. It's good to be back.
Doctor, millions have followed your bedtime stretches with life-changing results. Why do you think something so simple can make such a profound difference?
Because the body never forgets movement, John. It only forgets permission. As we age, tension quietly replaces flexibility. Muscles grow guarded. Breathing shortens. Most people don't realize that poor sleep often begins in the body, not the mind. When we stretch before bed, slowly, intentionally, we reset the nervous system. Blood flow improves, heart rate lowers, and the body begins to trust again. It's not about athleticism. It's about teaching your body that night is safe.
You once said sleep isn't a destination, but a transition. What did you mean by that?
Exactly this. We can't fall asleep by force. We move into it through relaxation. Those 3 simple stretches guide the body across that bridge. And when the body feels heard, sleep comes quietly, like an old friend returning home.
Doctor, you often say that sleep doesn't start in the mind. It begins in the body. For most of us, that sounds the opposite of what we've always been told. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Of course, John. You see, most people treat sleep as a mental event, something that happens when the brain finally switches off. But the truth is, long before the mind calms, the body must send it a message. We are safe now. Without that signal, no amount of quiet thinking or counting sheep can help. The body and the mind are like 2 musicians. One plays the rhythm, the other follows the melody. When the rhythm is tight, the melody falters. And that rhythm, your breath, your posture, your muscle tension, decides whether the mind can truly rest. I've seen thousands of older adults tell me, "Doctor, I can't stop thinking at night." But when I watch their bodies, I notice something simple. Their shoulders are tight. Their breathing shallow, their hands clenched. The mind is restless because the body is still fighting the day. When you release that physical tension, even a little, everything begins to change. The heart rate drops, the breath deepens, and the brain's alert systems begin to slow. That's the biological foundation of sleep, not psychology, physiology. After 60, this becomes even more important. Our muscles have learned to protect, to brace against discomfort, to carry years of small stresses. We stop noticing how tight we've become because tension starts to feel normal. That quiet stiffness in the jaw, the back, the hips, it's the body whispering, "I'm not done yet, I'm still holding on." So when you lie down and expect instant peace, the body can't respond. It's still wired to be alert. This is why I tell my patients that sleep is not a switch you flip, it's a sequence you complete. And that sequence begins in the body. A few slow stretches before bed are not about flexibility or exercise. They're about teaching the body that it's time to close the day. When you stretch the spine, loosen the shoulders, and let your breath move freely, you're telling your nervous system, there's no more threat, it's time to rest. In medicine, we talk about the parasympathetic system, the part that restores balance after stress. But it's not just biology, it's emotional safety. The body must first feel that the day is finished, before the mind will believe it. I remember one of my oldest patients, a retired teacher named Mrs. Tanaka. She told me she hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night for nearly 15 years. She tried everything: medications, herbal teas, even hypnosis. When she came to me, I didn't give her a prescription. I simply showed her how to move again. Every night she began with 3 gentle stretches, slow enough to match her breath. The first few nights she said she felt nothing. By the end of the second week, she was sleeping 5 hours straight. By the end of the month, 7. When I asked her what changed, she said something beautiful. "Doctor, I think my body finally remembered how to sleep." That's it. The body never forgets rest. It just needs to be reminded. What fascinates me is how quickly this shift happens, when people treat movement as a form of communication, not effort. You're not trying to fix the body. You're talking to it. You're saying, "I'm here, I'm listening, you can let go now." Every slow exhale becomes a message of safety. Every shoulder roll, every gentle twist is a signal that the day's weight can finally leave the muscles. It's why I tell people, don't wait until you're in bed to start relaxing. Begin while you're still awake. Let the transition into sleep be gradual, respectful. It's the difference between slamming a door and quietly closing it. The nervous system prefers quiet doors. And John, what I love about this approach is that it restores confidence. Many older adults lose faith in their body. They think it's failing them, that aging means inevitable restlessness. But when they start to stretch and breathe before bed, they feel something powerful: control. They realize that rest is not gone, it's waiting for cooperation. The body isn't the enemy, it's the gateway. So when I say sleep begins in the body, I mean that the road to peace starts beneath the skin, in your muscles, your breath, your rhythm. If you listen closely, the body will guide the mind home every single night without force, without fear, just the quiet return to what it always knew how to do.
Doctor, you often remind us that sleep can't be forced, that it needs permission, not pressure. But for so many people who lie awake at night, that's hard to accept. What does it really mean to give the body permission to rest?
That's a very important question, John. You see, most of us live our days trying to control everything. Our schedules, our emotions, even our sleep. We measure it, track it, fight for it, and when it doesn't come, we blame ourselves. But sleep is not something you chase. It's something you allow. When I say permission, I mean that rest begins when we stop demanding it and start creating the space for it to arrive. The human body is wise beyond words. It knows how to sleep, how to heal, how to recover. But it only does those things when it feels safe enough to let go. And that sense of safety cannot be forced. It must be felt. When I worked with older patients, especially those who spent years struggling with insomnia, I began noticing a pattern. They weren't sleepless because their bodies were broken. They were sleepless because they had forgotten how to soften. Their muscles stayed slightly tensed even when they tried to relax. Their breathing stayed high in the chest instead of deep in the belly. Their thoughts circled around unfinished business from the day. It was as if their bodies were still working, still guarding, still holding the weight of living. You can't force the body to drop that. You can only invite it. That's what permission looks like. An invitation, not a command. It reminds me of a man named Mr. Ito, one of my earliest patients. He was 78, strong and proud, but exhausted. He told me he hadn't slept peacefully in years. He'd try every night lying still, eyes shut, waiting for rest to come. He'd whisper to himself, "Come on, sleep." But the more he wanted it, the further it drifted away. When I visited his home one evening, I saw him lying in bed, fists clenched, jaw tight, shoulders stiff as stone. I asked him to get up. We sat together, and I asked him to simply breathe and nothing else. Slowly we began to stretch his hands, roll his shoulders, soften his face. Within minutes his body began to sigh. His shoulders dropped and he said, "I didn't realize how hard I was trying." That was the moment he gave himself permission. From that night forward he slept more easily, not because of a medicine or secret trick, but because he stopped fighting his own body. We often think effort brings results, but with rest, the opposite is true. The harder you push, the more alert your nervous system becomes. The body confuses your effort with danger. It says, "Why are we trying so hard? Is something wrong?" That's why people who chase sleep often feel more awake. Their nervous system is still in alert mode. But when you practice softness, slow breathing, gentle stretching, quiet awareness, the body feels the opposite message. It begins to understand that nothing is required of it now. That's when sleep naturally appears. Not because you earned it, but because you allowed it. When you reach your 60s and beyond, this lesson becomes vital. The body has lived through years of routine, responsibility, and noise. It carries invisible tension from decades of holding everything together: work, family, health, survival. You can't tell such a body sleep now. It doesn't respond to orders. It responds to care. That's why I encourage people to treat bedtime as a ritual of release, not a race to unconsciousness. Dim the lights, move slower, breathe with awareness, stretch with kindness. Those actions are a language. They tell your body, you're done for today. You've done enough. And that, John, is the moment of permission. I think about this often, how simple the process really is, yet how difficult it becomes when we've spent a lifetime in control. The permission to rest is, in many ways, the permission to trust again. To trust that your body knows what to do, that you don't need to force life to cooperate. It's like lowering your guard after years of vigilance. The moment you stop striving for perfect sleep, you begin to experience real rest. When my patients finally understand that, their whole relationship with bedtime changes. They no longer see it as a battle. They see it as a reunion, between mind and body, between effort and ease. So, John, when I say that sleep needs permission, I mean that the deepest rest begins when we surrender the need to control it. We prepare, we breathe, we move gently, and then we let go. Because sleep, like peace, arrives only when it's welcomed, not when it's demanded.
Doctor, you've often said that small, consistent bedtime movements can transform the way the body heals overnight. But many people still believe exercise belongs to the day, not the night. How do these gentle nighttime stretches make such a difference, especially for older adults who struggle with pain or restlessness?
That's a wonderful question, John. You see, most people think of stretching as something you do to wake up the body, before a walk, before a task, before a new day. But what we forget is that stretching is also how we teach the body to let go. When I began introducing bedtime movements to my elderly patients, it wasn't about flexibility or fitness. It was about communication. The body speaks in sensations, not words, and these small movements are its language of trust. Every time you stretch, breathe, and soften, you're telling your body it's safe now. You can rest. I remember one of my patients, a retired schoolteacher in her 80s named Mrs. Cato. She had severe stiffness in her legs and back that made her nights unbearable. She would fall asleep sitting upright in a chair because lying down felt too painful. One evening, I visited her home and showed her a simple routine, 3 small stretches she could do before bed. Just lifting her arms slowly toward the ceiling, rolling her shoulders backward in circles, and gently lifting one knee at a time while breathing out. Nothing intense, nothing forced. At first she laughed and said, "Doctor, these are too easy." But within minutes, her face softened, her breathing deepened, and she said, "I feel lighter." That night she slept lying down for the first time in months. It wasn't magic. It was release. Those stretches told her nervous system that the day was truly over. The science behind this is beautiful, John. Our muscles are not just for movement, they are also memory. Every emotion, every stress we suppress during the day leaves a trace in the body. The shoulders tighten from unspoken worries. The neck stiffens from overthinking. The lower back holds the tension of responsibility. And as we age, those patterns become habits. The muscles forget how to relax. That's why older people often describe feeling heavy or tired but unable to sleep. Their bodies are stuck in a low-level state of alertness, even when the mind wants rest. But when we move slowly, when we stretch consciously, we interrupt that pattern. We send a new signal, not through thought but through feeling. What happens next is remarkable. Blood circulation improves, bringing warmth and oxygen to areas that have been tight for years. The breath deepens naturally because the diaphragm expands. The heart rate lowers. These physical changes tell the brain that it's safe to switch from doing mode to healing mode. That's when the body begins to recover. Not during deep exercise, but during deep rest. These small bedtime stretches are like opening tiny windows inside the body, letting the air of peace come in. And once that begins, sleep no longer has to be forced. It arrives naturally, like night following day. For older adults, this becomes even more important. With age, the body loses not just flexibility, but also rhythm. The sleep-wake cycle, the circulation, even digestion, they all start to slow. Gentle stretches are a way to remind the body of its rhythm again. When I teach seniors, I often say, don't think of these movements as exercise. Think of them as a conversation. You don't need strength. You need awareness. A 10-second shoulder roll done with intention can be more powerful than an hour of yoga done without presence. The key is gentleness, the kind that doesn't push but invites. And there's another layer, John, the emotional one. When you move before bed, you also begin to clear emotional residue from the day. You take all that invisible weight, the disappointments, the thoughts, the self-criticism, and you give it a pathway out. I've seen people tear up after doing these stretches, not because of pain, but because of release. The body was holding stories it never got to finish. Movement helps it finish them quietly, without words. If I could give one message to anyone listening, it would be this. Your body is still listening to you, even at 80, even at 90. It wants to heal. It wants to rest. You just have to speak its language. Slow, gentle, forgiving movement. Don't aim to stretch far or perfectly. Just move until you feel warmth, until your breath deepens, until your heart feels like it's whispering, "Thank you." That's enough. That's where sleep begins. So yes, John, bedtime stretches are not just about muscles or joints. They are about reconciliation. A quiet reunion between you and the body that has carried you for decades. Each slow movement says, "You've done enough for today." And when the body finally hears that message, sleep is no longer something you try to find. It's something that finds you.
You know, Doctor, tonight's conversation reminded me that real rest isn't something we chase. It's something we create. Through stillness, breath, and gentle movement, we give our bodies the permission they've been waiting for all along.
Yes, John. Health is not built in the moments of effort, but in the moments of surrender. When you stretch softly before sleep, when you breathe without rush, when you thank your body instead of commanding it, you begin to live differently. Every night becomes a quiet renewal. Every morning a small beginning. Longevity is not about counting years. It's about living each day with awareness and gratitude. Care for yourself like you would for someone you love deeply. That's how peace enters the body.
Beautifully said, Doctor. To everyone listening, stay gentle, stay mindful, and if this message touched you, remember to subscribe for more moments of wisdom and calm.